Mary, can you hear us okay?
I can, thank you.
Hey, Marcus. Hi. Good. How are you?
I can, thank you.
Hi, Mary. It's 5:15. We'll go ahead and call this special meeting of USD 417 COVID to order. We'll pass by the introductions and go straight to the consent agenda. Tonight's items are the approval of the agenda, several personnel items, employment, Keely Reddick, high school student support teacher, Rena Martin, CGES teacher's aide interventionist, Randy Gilliam, CGES teacher's aide interventionist, Wadia Kraft, school bus driver, Zach Newsom, high school assistant boys basketball coach, and the resignation of Nathan Dykeman of CGJS HS custodian. I like to see that all the time. Echo tonight. I think I take care of it. Yeah. All right, anything on there anybody like to see removed from the personnel agenda or the consent agenda, excuse me?
Mr. President, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Moved and second that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Discussion on that item. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? So passed. Jump right into action items then, the summer food service masking guidelines.
All right, so I know we were going to discuss this on the 14th, but obviously we got a few things that have popped up that we need to expedite it a little bit. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is just to have the conversation. How do we want to continue to move forward? Now we don't have kids around in the buildings. How do we want to handle staff that are in the building now? We want to make masks optional for them so they can work without masks if they choose. And then how do we handle summer food service program and also driver's ed? That will be starting here soon too. Senate Bill 40 ends tomorrow, so the 28th is when Senate Bill 40 ends. But that can guide you on how you as a board would like to move forward with how we continue to make these changes as we move forward throughout the summer and then start planning for next year.
Okay. Thoughts?
Becky's on. Can we get her input?
Sure. Becky, would you like to unmute?
Yes, hi. Can you guys, oh, shoot. Sorry. Yes, hi. Can you see me yet?
Becky, are you talking?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why it's not working.
I can hear you, Becky, online.
Okay, good.
Try it again.
Okay. Hold on.
I can hear you, Becky, online.
There we go. We got
Okay.
you.
Okay, good.
You're
Okay.
back.
All right. Yeah. What's your questions?
Do you just want to give your input, Becky?
Oh, okay. So, well, my original question to Aaron was, what do we do with the kids? So I don't really have any, I feel like the staff's going to do whatever you tell us. I mean, we'll get paid to do what you guys tell us. So I don't really have any input there. I know my personal preference is it's a lot easier to not have that mask on because we can't breathe. But that is not my decision. That will always be yours.
You're catching what she's saying.
Yeah, you're You got a loop going on, Becky. Sorry, I don't know why. It's talking over yourself, so we need to. Mary, on your guys' end, does it sound normal or is it looping?
Yeah.
And you're hearing multiple sentences running together.
It's not looping, and can you hear me clearly?
Kelly,
Yeah, I can hear you too.
I can hear you, Mary, but I haven't been able to hear the people at school very well tonight.
It's not looping, and can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you too.
There we go. That's better.
How's that?
I don't know what we did, but it's working, so let's roll with it.
Oh, good. Okay. So, all right. So my original thing was for the kids was what are we going to do about the kids? I feel like you guys are going to decide for the staff because we're going to get paid to do whatever you tell us. So you guys decide that. I personally don't want to police the kids. So if one group gets to not wear the masks, I don't want to have.
Hey, Becky, I think it's still looping, so hang on a minute. This is Mary.
Okay.
Okay, we got it figured out. Hold on.
Okay.
We had the recording loop was playing in the background. All right. Reset.
Okay.
Try it one more time, Becky, for us,
Okay.
please.
So I'm going to start in the middle. So I don't want to have to police the kids. So like if one group of kids aren't wearing masks, I don't want to have parents that come in and they're like, well, why is that group not wearing masks? But my kid does. Because I just don't feel like my staff should have to deal with that. So I just, if it's okay with you all to make a collective group decision, that would be easier for my staff since we work as a public service. So that was really just my whole stance.
Becky, this is Mary, and I could hear you. And you did say a few things about what would make it easier for your staff. So I would like you to repeat that for the others in the room, if you wouldn't mind.
Like,
Well, you did mention, and I'm going to quote you wrong. So
yeah, go ahead and
okay.
I'll fix it.
You mentioned that if it were up to you, maybe that no masking would be easier for you, just for the breathing part, but you'll do whatever.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yes, it is definitely easier to not be masked because we do get hot and sweaty, and the hotter it gets, the worse off it is for us. And like, for instance, when we're hot and sweaty and then you walk into a freezer, dear Lord, that's a feeling you don't want. I did actually talk to a couple custodians, and they're also breathing heavy too. So I think they would appreciate that also. But again, if we're going to do whatever as a staff, we're going to do whatever you guys tell us. So I mainly ask the question for kids. What are you going to collectively tell us to do for the kids so that we aren't having one group do one thing and the other group do something else? Because that's going to be a mess. So thank you.
Dana, you want to share anything? Well, I think we need to talk both. So let's start with students. Let's kind of go down the list. It makes it easier. So what about just in general, the public that comes in to eat for some food? Let's tackle that one first. It'd be easier. That way we don't cloud it.
I know some of the discussion I've had is for those that are going to come into.
Hey, Dana, we can just barely hear you all. We can hear Aaron pretty good, but we can barely hear you.
These are loud.
Can you hear me now, Mary? Okay, so in discussing just the general public that's coming in to eat, which we're still gonna have the drive-through, so that number shouldn't be large. Obviously, you're able to unmask when you're eating, and so it would be like, I don't know, 20 feet, 30 feet that you wear a mask for, and then you sit down and you take it off to eat. So I personally don't feel like it's gonna be a major detriment if we don't require them to wear one in, as long as they're just coming in, sitting down and eating, and then going. Does that make sense? Did you hear that?
And I just want to make sure that was in reference to just the general public. Is that who you were talking about, Dana? Or were you talking
Right,
about
that's
students?
just the students, and if their parents are coming in to eat. So they're just walking in, sitting down and eating, and then leaving. So you know, they wouldn't have them on for very long. If we require them to wear them in, it would be for a very brief moment. I don't know if that's necessary, we're gonna have them off the rest of the time while they're eating. Just my 2 cents on it.
I would agree. If you go to any restaurant in town, you don't have to wear a mask. You go to church, you go to hardware store, grocery store. So just that little bit of walking in there, I think that becomes more of a.
Scott, could you repeat the last? I got all the places you don't have to wear it, but what was the last thing you said? I'm sorry.
I said, I just don't think there would be any need for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Becky, can you give us any idea what numbers might look like coming into the school?
You're gonna have to repeat your question.
She wanted to know what your numbers look like, what you anticipate for numbers coming into the school.
Well, so at Prairie Heights, we'll for sure have probably about 50 at Prairie Heights. A good half of that will be kids that are every single day. And it'll be the same kids every single day. I do have an option at the high school to, they will, if you don't feel comfortable coming into school to get food, there is that option to do a curbside meal. So you don't actually have to come on site to eat. So I honestly don't know how many kids are going to be coming inside to eat, because I've never had both options before. But in a typical year, other than the wrestling camp, I can serve upwards of 125 to 150 kids on a given day, other than Fridays. Fridays are about 50.
So do we need 2 separate motions? Do we need a motion for the public and a motion for staff?
Probably depends on how we're gonna handle it. If we make the same for everybody, possibly not.
So then can we just go into the discussion about staff? Dana, do you have?
Well, for staff, I do feel like there's a little bit of a importance as far as us, our obligation, not our obligation, but for us feeding people that are coming in. I feel like if we're going to unmask, I should say it this way, for those that are not vaccinated, staff members preparing food for other people, I feel like they should need the mask at this time for the summer. Because it is not, I mean, they're serving food, so they're going to be preparing and serving the food to, you know, our students that have not had the opportunity to vaccinate. And so for that reason, I feel like staff members that have not been vaccinated, food service workers should have a mask on.
While they're serving or the entire time?
I would say while they're preparing or serving the food.
Aaron, has the state board or the commissioner or anyone provided any kind of guidance for this past the Senate Bill 40?
No, unfortunately not. There's some talk of what they're doing with, it's kind of a sidebar, but it kind of relates. There's a talk about they're going to try some things, the COVID mitigation to the ESSER $3 possibly. We don't know what that is yet. The federal government is, that being not the state government. Don't know if that's what that looks like or to what extent. So they haven't given any guidance outside of what they've already given moving forward at this point. So I did talk to Buncie County Health Officer in our meeting there, in our weekly meeting, is when Becky asked the question that same day. So it was current on my mind. So I did ask him, and he suggested too that he felt if they weren't vaccinated while they're preparing food, it'd be beneficial to mask. Was his opinion as well. I had not talked to our local health officials about it. He definitely thought if you're vaccinated, there was no need to wear a mask. That's his opinion of that.
Thoughts, questions?
Are there any studies or anything that point to the amount of spread for food service workers versus other situations that we can look at metrics wise? Or is
I know of. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get like it's their transmission through food.
for
Yeah.
food, and restaurants, et cetera?
No, that's a good question.
Anything that would help us make that decision, because I'm looking at it like Becky said, these people it's hot, it's uncomfortable. Is it really necessary? Or is it just good optics?
And I was just trying to think about if you're going into another restaurant, are they being required by the state
In the back.
for those? And just the different headlines I read, and the other people on school boards that I know that have completely eliminated the mask for staff and for students.
Yeah, majority starting June 1st will be optional. We're not in a state meeting today. Majority of school districts are going optional starting June 1st.
And
Hey,
will you
there.
define optional, what that means? Like optional to wear the mask or not? And it's just up
Correct.
to the individual staff member?
Correct. Yeah. But a lot of them, when I ask specifically about things like food service, they don't do summer foods. They contract out to OPA and those things. They don't have that program. That, just to clarify, that is majority of moving forward with staff on campuses and buildings. It was optional if you want to wear a mask or not, if you were still working at this time.
Should we qualify it in terms of if there's an increase in number of cases or anything?
Good. You use that gating metrics.
I think we can come back to the table anytime, right? I mean, we've been doing that.
Yep.
Often, so. Because right now, we're in a good place.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Deidre, can you repeat that for me, please? I'm
I
sorry.
don't know, it was probably nonsense. What did I say?
She said, could we, well, she piggyback off what Marie said about tying it to some sort of like gating metrics that's in place. If our numbers start going up, then maybe we look at changing, loosening it up now and then using those gating criteria to see how it goes, because we can always come back to the table anytime as a board. And also with Senate Bill 40 expiring, you can also just empower the administrative team to report to you and make decisions moving forward, continuing to be progressive, to undo mitigation as it allows and so forth, like we are, and report to you too. We don't have to meet over every single thing if you don't want, but that's up to the board. We can too. It's just up to how everybody handles it differently. So, and then if there's objections to how things are handled, then obviously we can meet But there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. But yeah, it would be good to have some sort of dialogue go to center that round. So if we do as an admin team make those decisions, we are basing it on those, some sort of gating criteria or metrics that would help guide that. So there's some consistency.
I sort of asked this question to Dana in a separate email about, well, and you two, and verifying vaccination status of food service workers. If we don't have a specific policy in place that says that they have to have that on file or they have to report it, then isn't it just an honor system for them too?
So yes, so legally, the Board of Education has a right, any employer has the right to require proof of vaccination for employment if you choose to do that. So yes, if you don't make that a policy, make that a part condition of employment, so to speak, then yes, it'd be an honor system. That'd go back to the option, and you're just taking people's word for it. So, and I did contact, KSAB legal on this, and it's like basically the same conversation we're having now. I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. You could do that if you have a feeling that it's necessary to do, like hospitals do right now. If you have something that support that, why it's feasible, she's recommending you need to do what you feel best for your kids. If you're doing it just to do it, then obviously it's not, because it's not a least restrictive measure. It's not a way to do things just to do it. So she said, definitely, if you're going to tie it to, and I explained to her the kind of the multiple scenarios we're talking about, kids who haven't had an opportunity to be vaccinated yet, versus we're just in the building working. Like I told our staff, our last staff in the district office, says, everybody comfortable if we took off masks, the board approved it. Everybody said, absolutely, they were fine with that. And so, but there's no kids in there, and that's okay. We're not taking a chance of exposing. I don't know who's vaccinated in there or not, but they were all okay with that. Custodians working in the building, no, there's no kids around. So it doesn't matter, to them, it's a choice. To me, I think that'd be a choice to them. If they're not vaccinated or not, they're assuming the risk. And they have the option, get vaccinated if they choose to. Summer camps and all that, like we talked about earlier, those are private camps. So that's up to the parent to send their kid or not. And coaches run those independently of the school system. So again, that's up to them to do that. The only really thing we have that's district ran is driver's ed and summer food. So.
And do those overlap? Like, are those individuals going to be in the building at the same time?
Yeah, doesn't driver's ed start June 1st? It starts.
Question, is it a HIPAA violation to ask that question? Ask if they're.
No, Donna Whiteman, one of the board attorneys, said she quoted it, EERO. I can't remember the acronym, but she quoted a policy that allows districts to, or businesses to, require proof of vaccination for employment.
Didn't know if that'd be a medical record violation.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it comes with a responsibility if that's something we do, though. I mean, that is something I wouldn't take that lightly, just to say, hey, we need to prove you have a vaccination. I mean, we need to be able to justify why we feel that's important to do if we're going to take it to that extent.
Will all the food service employees in the summer still, have to go through the temperature scanner and all the standard? I mean, I didn't come into the building like you guys did, so I would assume they employees all still kind of went through the same thing the kids did, where they take their temperature. And obviously, if they're not feeling well, then they're going to go home. I don't think anybody plays with that anymore. But well, if those things are still in place, that is another level of we're being safe, right?
Yeah, I don't see a need. That's a conversation we talk about. What do we do with those pieces of equipment now? And I think from Dan's perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I misinterpreted it, but she's talked about, and I've talked about with her about, is there a benefit that they're just for kids to know and monitor themselves, leaving it there, why take them down, even in the future, in the wintertime and so forth? Because sometimes kids come to school and they may not be feeling good, and they go and check their own temperature. They don't have to go to the office and take Dana, take her time to do so. They can go check themselves, and then they go, hey, I'm not feeling good. It said I had a 100-degree temperature. Can you take my temperature? So. And the kids enjoy seeing their red, yellow, and blue.
My nephews loved it during graduation. I was thinking the same thing. It'd be great for anybody to walk by. I'm not feeling good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did have that happen this year a few times where kids would come into me and say, that thing just said I was 99.8 or whatever. And
double check, so.
So yeah, I don't see a need to take it down. We have them, you know, only what we do is put them in a storage closet somewhere and repurpose the TV, probably somewhere in a classroom. So we might as well use them if we got them. Yeah. But the other side of that too is, I think, you know, some of the health officers' perspective is we trust our people and we want to treat them like professionals, but then life comes into it. If you're out of sick days or if you got to work and it's the honor system, do they come in not intentionally trying to do anything bad, but just because that's what life is? They've got to work, pay their bills. And so do they potentially come in and work sick? And we don't know that, you know, that they're sick yet. And I mean, that was some of the concern passed on from some of the health professionals was it's not that we want to not trust people. It's just the fact that sometimes life gets in the way. And I mean, you got to choose, do I stay at home because I'm out of sick days or do I go to work? I got bills coming up. Human nature, they're going to go work. They can pay the bills. Hits them in a bad spot too. You know, I think I don't know. It's worth discussing. You know, some sort of in between. If it was more serving impacts more people, at least if they're preparing in the kitchen and they're cooking it, then there's an opportunity if it's being cooked for the virus to, if someone was asymptomatic and spread, you know, and happened to cough on something or in their hands and transfer it to a food item, if it was cooked or it takes longer for it to get out here to be served, transmission may be less if we masked while we were serving, just had everybody masked and not singled anybody out and just had a mask only while they're serving. That would at least lower the risk factor some instead of. I guess, does it have to be an all or nothing? Is that what we're talking about? Do we lower the risk factor some by just having a mask while they're serving in a line? You know, I don't know, Dana, we never really discussed that. So.
Yeah, I mean, some of it depends on what they're making that day, you know, if it's going to be something that they are cooking or not.
Are we walking through the line?
Becky, do you know, can you talk to us on how you plan on serving? Is it going to be back to how you've always done it, where they walk through the serving area and serve?
Yes, we will be walking through the serving area. Everything has a sneeze guard. Yes, everything will have a sneeze guard. I actually love the compromise that you have of just wear a mask when you're serving. Because then, I mean, at that point, from what I know on food handling things, honestly, at the time that the food is cooked and ready, that is when everything is really deemed ready to eat. So it's already been, you know, everything has been cooked to 165 or, you know, it's still within the cold holding temps. And so, but typically, I mean, bacteria wise, I realize viruses are not bacteria, but, you know, most things are killed at 165, which everything that we cook is definitely out of the temperature danger zones. So if we had our masks off when we are cooking the actual food and prepping it, so I would say like the salad bar people, maybe they should be masked up because, you know, that stuff is all fresh. And then, but like the people that are cooking the food, you know, that stuff you probably wouldn't need to. Like, if we could just have some leeway in what we're doing. So like if we're putting away groceries, take the stuff off, you know, that kind of thing.
Rewind to people. You said
Salad
people,
bar.
salad bar people, fresh, stay masked, but then we lost you. Sorry.
Okay. So like if we could just have some leeway in when we need to be masked. So like everything, anything that is ready to eat. So the fresh produce parts, serving, you know, really basically anything that when we aren't actually cooking or prepping, you know, putting frozen cheeseburgers on a pan kind of prepping food. You know, that kind of stuff. When stuff's going to be cooked, that is the kind of stuff that I would feel would not need to be masked. But then the stuff that, you know, that you could just go grab a cucumber and eat it, that's the kind of stuff that I could see, yes, we should probably be masked. And serving, we should be masked.
Have you received any guidance from the state, from the food service department on anything
Well,
like
it's
that?
really contradictory, if you ask me. So it says there is no link to any COVID cases with food service, but we recommend that you wear them. And they think it should be the district's decision. I think they just want them not to make a decision.
Imagine that.
I know, like, it's very contradictory, so I have nothing to tell you.
My question then goes to serving outside, the people that are coming through the lines. Would those guidelines be even different than the people that are serving inside?
That's all prepackaged though, right outside. You prepare prepackaged stuff for the drive-through, right?
It's the same food, but it's in a package. So yes, like it's the same food, but we'll have it in to-go containers.
Maybe that could even be a
Yeah, I would.
rotation.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see. I think that would be similar to like in here. You know, they're not serving it. They're just.
Well, and like, I honestly don't. I can tell you that I am more than positive when they're prepping their food, they will be social distanced, because I don't have enough staff in there for the summer to not, like, I will have plenty of room, but when they're serving inside, I don't know if I'll be able to keep 6 feet, 10 feet between. Oh, that's better. I still, well, I might be able to get 3 feet. Okay. Well, either way, I still think the serving line, maybe we should keep the whole mask on the serving line. But if we could just have leeway on what we do when we're cooking, I think that would just be great.
So what you're saying, I'm gonna summarize to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You're saying give you guys the latitude to just be professional when you're cooking inside the kitchen, to wear a mask when necessary, but be able to take them off when you can as well, and then just wear them only when you're serving the food for that time. Going through the line.
Yeah, whenever we're not, basically whenever we aren't handling ready to eat food, we don't have them on. And when we are handling ready to eat food, we'll have them suckers on.
Becky, how many staff do you think you'll have at a time this summer? How many people are we talking about?
So in Prairie Heights, I have 1.5. She's gonna go back and forth on different days. At Council Grove, I have 4. Well, and myself. So, and then I have volunteers. I think we've gotten it to 2 or 3 volunteers out in the lunchroom per day.
You say volunteers, is that the groups that sign up to do activities during the time, or is that people actually helping?
We have canceled the activities this year, so that's just the ones that are going to come in and make sure that the kids are, social distanced out in the cafeteria, and they're going to clean the spots after each kid's there or each family unit is there, and then, hurry them on outside after they eat.
Okay, thank you.
And then I've got another numbers question, I guess. Dana, I'm gonna put you on the spot here for a second. So we're talking about fewer than 10 people. Of those 10, are 70% of those vaccinated? 80? I mean, do we have any idea what our percentage might be? I mean, are we talking above 70%? Okay, so above 70% of the potential 10, and I'm high on my estimate of 10. So the bulk of the people that will be here will be vaccinated as well, that are working. Okay.
Can I add on to that? Question for you, Dana?
Sure.
If we know that 100% of them are vaccinated, we still require the mask?
We look into that. There's no, it's okay to share. There's one full-time food service member not vaccinated once. So, we checked into that because if that was the case,
Yeah,
100% vaccinated, we don't need to have this conversation. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. But no, it wasn't. We have one full-time.
Okay, like I said, that was gonna make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Dana, what do you think about vaccine?
Well, I think that the way Becky describes it, as long as they can keep that separate as far as when they're, whether the meal's gonna be hot and cooked, or if it's just like they're cutting up vegetables or something like that. I think there is a big difference to me for that. Because you're not, gonna cook off that bacteria or virus, whatever, which your food is, that you're getting ready for summer or whatever. So I think that as long as they do it that way, I think that would be feasible.
You have good feelings about masking while serving and while prepping fresh food.
Can I also add one more thing? If it would make your guys' jobs any easier, if you would like us to cut these vegetables up and pre-package them in a certain way to make your job a little easier, we could do that. We've been pre-packaging this food all year long. Another 6 weeks is not going to kill us. Like, putting watermelon in little sacks and, making cute little salads and whatever, if that's going to make your decision for the next 6 weeks easier, we can sure do it.
But I think that where we're at now, we would still have the expectation that whoever's preparing that, whether it goes in the sacks or whether it goes on the bar, would be wearing the mask. So
True.
I like that thought, but I think from our perspective, it's going to be almost the same.
Okay, well,
So
I kind of like that.
I'm going to go off on a limb here real quick, just to see if this dies for a lack of second, I'm absolutely okay with it. But here I go. I'm going to make the motion that for our food service workers for the 6-week summer food program, that if they're preparing ready to eat, anytime they're around ready to eat food, they will wear a mask. When not around ready to eat, Becky's terms, masks are optional.
And did you wish to include serving food, Mr. President, in that motion?
Well, with that, I feel like they're around ready to serve food, ready to serve food, right?
Yeah, we say ready to eat.
Ready to eat.
Yeah.
And that's if they're vaccinated or not, it's with the food, with the ready to eat food.
Yep.
Right.
All right.
I'm done.
I'm done. I'm looking for a second. I'm giving everybody time because if it's going to die, it's going to die, and that's okay. All right. Moved and seconded that for food service for the summer, make sure I get this close to right, Bryce. Anytime ready to serve food is being prepared or served, ready to eat, ready to eat. I should have wrote this down. Masks will be required. Other times, optional. Discussion on that item. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay. So that's the employees. Now we've got people coming in to eat. Thoughts on that? I heard that earlier and then we kind of went past it. So you want to restate that, kind of your thoughts on that since it's been a little while?
Yeah, so I had just mentioned though, it will be a pretty short time span for people to walk in that, whatever, 30 feet, whatever it is, to sit down and take their mask off anyway while they're eating. So I think it would be feasible to say that they would not have to wear a mask in.
Make it optional. Yeah.
Make it optional, yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, yeah, definitely, they can still wear one if they choose, but optional.
I'd sure entertain it.
I just wanted to make sure, because Dana kind of trailed off there for a minute. I just want to make sure we heard it right, that you were saying that for the 30 feet in and out and to eat, that your recommendation would be no mask. Is that what I heard correctly?
I think it's okay for it to be optional,
Okay.
Mary Kate, mainly because of, I mean, we're talking near seconds of walking in and out that door, to then take it off when they sit down, so.
Thank you. That's what I thought you said. I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
So I would move that masks are optional to attend the summer food.
Okay. Oh, wait, we could not hear that. Sorry.
Sorry, I moved that, this is bad grammar all the way around. Masks are optional for the summer food service program.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second to make masks optional for
Yes.
guests at the summer food program. Further discussion on that item? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? All right.
So can we go ahead then and discuss?
Yeah, Marie didn't, we didn't get.
Maria, we didn't get your vote there. I'm sorry.
I'll vote to do it.
She said, yeah.
Okay.
So can we, I mean, this ties into it, so I think it's okay on the agenda item. Can we go ahead and talk about like custodian, I mean, all other district employees who are working this summer, make it optional for masks for them. And then also when you talk about, driver's ed.
Driver's ed, yeah.
How did we do it last year? Last summer? How did they, I mean, social distancing, limited the number of drivers, and social distance and so forth. How did Bruce do it like?
In the classroom, once they were in the classroom, they were socially distanced, they can take the mask off. But all of the time, when not socially distanced, they would have the mask on.
But the driver's ed kids are over 12.
Yeah, but they won't, starting June 3rd, they won't, it's still
14,
outside of the
14.
14. That's what, 3 weeks from the first job and 2 weeks after, so it's 5 week period from.
Right, but I might add this too, that the study that they did with like 12 to 15-year-olds, the first shot was 93% effective. It had 93% efficiency and then 100% efficiency. So that's something to keep in mind with that.
Good news.
It was really good, really positive results with that age group.
And by classroom, are we
Erin?
looking at the auditorium again this year?
Yes.
Aaron, would you mind repeating? I think it was Kelly that was talking what he was saying. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. It's not your fault. It's just setup. That's why we gotta get back in the boardroom.
I know, sorry, I wasn't off working time. Sorry.
No, not that. I mean, just as a smaller environment, it's easier to hear even if someone has to be remote. He said that last summer when he did it, when kids were seated in the classroom, and I'm assuming the classroom, the auditorium. Yeah, they were in the auditorium. They could take their mask off while they were setting because they were all spread out. But any other time when they were moving about or in the car driving, they had to have their mask on last summer.
And just in keeping with, I'm just trying to make sure you guys have all the data that's still current right now. I mean, quarantine so far has still been in place. It's still in play. So as we choose, masking or unmasking, that doesn't necessarily define quarantine, but it's that 6-foot rule. So like as they're driving together in vehicles, we still may be looking at quarantine, but I just want to make sure that's understood too, that that's still on the table.
Well, and I think that's a good point. That's something we can do with Bruce is, still try to keep a social distance in the van. So that way, if there is a positive case for some reason, it doesn't limit 4 other kids or 5 other kids from being able to continue to participate in driver's ed and miss out. Because then we got to look at, do we refund them how do we handle that then, you know, because that's not, they can't make up 2 weeks of driver's ed probably, I would assume, I don't know if we can do that or not. I know in the past, he said don't schedule vacation during that time because you gotta be there. So I think it'd be important to still social distance in there if we can, and, if you got 50 kids or so signed up, I think we could.
And Bruce has already measured it out and he can get them all in.
And that's just purely for the sake of protecting from being quarantined in case there's positive.
Dan, I had read that the CDC had changed their recommendation to 3 foot.
They have changed to 3 foot as far as trying to get schools to come back, on site for those that have gone remote.
3 foot of
Trying to
mask,
say
right?
that it was, should be safe, as long as you have that 3 foot, but they didn't change the quarantine rule.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
I just, the difference between, I mean, I read stuff all the time that I think says one thing.
I know, yeah,
Does a vaccinated person still have to quarantine?
not a vaccinated person. If they're fully vaccinated, 2 weeks after that second vaccine or one for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
So if you had a car full of kids that are learning to drive and they all are vaccinated, none of them have to wear a mask, and if one person gets sick, then none of them have quarantine.
As
That's
long
accurate?
as they have no symptoms, correct.
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing everything and I'm not making a motion. I just want to make sure that it's possible to socially distance the students while in the classroom with Bruce, but are we really talking about the car time, the time that they would be in the car? That's maybe the issue up for discussion.
Yeah, last summer when we did it, the advice from the health department was, and state was, if we could social distance them in the car with a mask, and they don't have to quarantine because they're in that 6 feet. So that's where we used the minivans, and we was able to get kids spaced out. I think you only took 2, didn't you?
It's typically 3, but they were at each level of the van, whatever they provide.
And if we can, yeah.
When do they start driving?
You have to complete half of your day 6 of the book. You got it. I think it's either day 6 or day 7. They basically, like, it's the second week.
Pretty quick.
And were they masked last year? My assumption is yes, but I don't know.
Yes, they were. Only time they were not masked when they were seated in the auditorium during class. They could take their masks off.
Are the students in the vehicle required to have proof on record of the vaccination? Or is that on our system as well? Because I really just don't know.
We don't have anything in place requiring proof of vaccination right now. I mean, obviously, those who chose to get it at school, we know, but no one's required to report to us if they got their kids vaccinated somewhere else. Is that correct? That's the way I understand it, yeah.
I know that everybody knows who our driver's ed teacher is. I don't wanna. Oh, sorry. I know that everybody knows who our driver's ed teacher is, but is there a way for us to know that he's protected so that could help guide our decision? That he's vaccinated?
If he's had the option to, I don't see why it would matter.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the stance we've taken is with those who had the chance to be vaccinated, that's their choice to do.
But he would still have to quarantine if he is in the front seat.
That would be
a student.
That would be correct. That would be the downside.
If he's not vaccinated.
That brings up a whole nother level of something that.
Right, so I could blow the doors off the whole thing.
Yeah.
Aaron, how long are they in the van driving?
Sometimes it's 3 hours, right? They each drive for an hour, don't they? And they go clear to, like, man, they have to drive on the interstate some. There's certain things he has to check off the list. So if they can go to Manhattan and drive in the city, they drive on the interstate. Yeah, so it's 3 hours because then they rotate. So one student will drive an hour, then they rotate, and that keeps them kind of come all the way back here to unload and pick up. They just do it all at once. So.
Yeah, I'm asking that because I guess I'm just thinking I see this just a little bit differently than some of the other situations we've talked about tonight, because they are in a confined space. moving around within that space. And I mean, ultimately, it's our job to keep everyone safe, whether it be staff or students, but this just feels to me a little bit different than walking into the space there to eat lunch and leave. So I don't know. It just,
Would it be feasible to say, while they're social distance, they can, like we did last year, unmask, but while they're driving, they need to have their mask, we keep them social distance, they don't have to quarantine. And then keep their mask on, at least until, does it go past 5 weeks? When's the 5 weeks? When would people be fully vaccinated? When kids open up?
As the youngest one.
What's the timeline for them if they chose to become vaccinated before vaccinated?
I got it. After June 23rd.
Probably grandfathered.
Do we want to use the same verbiage that we used at graduation for those who are not fully vaccinated, that masks are required? That gives the option for those people who have taken the vaccine and are past the 2-week period, that they would then be eligible to not have to wear a mask.
I think you could. If we did that, though, I think we'd want to make it confirm. I mean, which Dana knows. She has access to that. She knows who's been vaccinated or not.
Right.
She has access to that, everybody. But that doesn't mean we can't use it inappropriately.
Right.
You know, it's like if we wanted to say that until, we would verify that, we could. And that would probably be something we wanted, I mean, in my opinion, Dana, share yours, but if we did that, we'd want to verify that kids truly did have it.
I'm just thinking of the parent that says, well, my kids already got this. And that gives us an out for that, but also is requesting that they wear it. Mr. Hula wants to wear it. I wouldn't begrudge him that either.
Yeah,
If you're
I mean, I would
around
be in
kids
favor of
that
that.
may get it.
If we could verify that the kids truly did have it, because unfortunately, I think in the honor system there, we saw, I know there was people here that were vaccinated that didn't have the mask on.
Right.
And so be it. But for that situation where we're in a car, I'd want to verify the kids that had it. That way we're not having a situation where we get into.
And I'm fine with that too.
well, and I just want to clarify too, that I think the verbiage for the graduation or that decision that we made for graduation was we were talking about adults because the graduating class was 18 or over and could be vaccinated. And with this, we're talking about a group that hasn't yet had the full opportunity to make that decision or to even have that happen yet.
So is it feasible to say that, say social distance, so we don't have to quarantine kids if something happens? And then if you're vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. And we'll require parents to show us their card, or at least give them permission to have Dana verify it through her feeds that a kid doesn't have, that has vaccination. If they didn't do it here at school, they did it somewhere else.
I can look at that.
I think it has to be fully vaccinated, right? Because
Right.
you want to make sure it's past the 2 weeks, it's not just
Yeah, I honestly, that when everybody enrolls, they mark a box giving me permission to. I have access to the Kansas Immunization Registry. So for 90-some% of our students, I have access to verify that already.
And the other good thing too, to know, driver's ed choice that, we're offering a service. It's not like it's a class during the day that they're required to take, parents are requiring that service. I don't think it's unfeasible for us to say, to keep that consistent, that we want to make sure everyone, you're not going to wear a mask or vaccinated in that car. Right.
But I think a car is a little bit different situation than some other, especially if you want your air conditioner on high, you're using your circulating air, you're in a tight space, like Mary Kay said, you're moving around, touching the same things that other people have. So I think a car is a lot different than looking at an auditorium.
And the good news is this is the last time we have to worry about it. Next summer, it's a moot point.
What did you say the efficacy rate was of the first shot?
93% that was the 12 to 15-year-old study. 93% efficient.
Which
There was
will
about
be the same.
2,000. There was about 2,000 children in that study.
Okay, and I'm not
They
trying,
went from 16 16-year-olds in this group go too.
They're still old enough.
Yeah.
I'm not trying,
to get vaccinated.
and I'm not trying to be argumentative with that, but what if someone decides that that first shot's enough for me or for their kid? That's pretty good, right? I mean, you're saying fully vaccinated, meaning that the
Well,
second
that's
shot
the
is
wording, that's the
required.
wording that we use at graduation. So that's why I was saying if we're going off the wording used at graduation, it said fully vaccinated.
Right, but
And really,
this is the first time I'm hearing that number, so that's why I'm just bringing it up. I'm not trying to argue anything.
No.
I'm just
Yeah,
talking it through.
yeah.
Right, and I mean, as far as the definition of being fully vaccinated is that it would be the 2 vaccines. If you're gonna use the fully vaccinated, in your, whatever. you choose to
What's
use.
it go up to after the second shot?
100%.
100%?
In that study, it was 100% efficient.
How many were in the study?
There was 2,000, approximately 2,000 in that study.
So there's probably nobody that would say one shot. If they're being guaranteed 100% with their second shot, it doesn't make any sense to.
Right, and they would never say it's a guarantee, but within that study, that's what they saw.
Okay.
Other thoughts or questions?
All right, so let's summarize that. So, don't have to wear a mask when they're in the auditorium, social distance like last summer. Basically the same protocols last summer is what we're doing. The only thing we're really changing is if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask while you're driving.
Bryce, I so moved what he said.
David? Yeah.
No, I was kind of thinking and it just kind of came out. No, I mean, how we talked about fully vaccinated, I mean, is there a discussion to be had as far as those even coming into the classroom?
Well, yeah, I think if, once you're fully vaccinated, you wouldn't have to wear your mask at all. would you?
It'd be optional always.
Yeah,
If that's, the route that we're gonna take,
that makes sense. Okay, so same procedures last summer, except for those who are fully vaccinated have the option to wear a mask or not.
That's what I heard Scott move.
Yep, and we'll need to verify students that are fully vaccinated. We do need to verify that. That won't be in our system.
Hey, Aaron, does this motion need to include this?
We've lost you, Mary. Kay.
Hold on, let me reset.
This is on my.
All right, now try.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wondered if the motion needed to include students and the staff member in that motion. Or is that the assumption?
We'll have, because we'll have 3 adults working driver's ed this summer, 2 instructors and 1 aide. So, yeah, I mean, that's.
Bryce, will you include that in my motion?
That's what he said.
So let me see if I can catch this motion that Scott has so eloquently made. So for driver's ed, similar to last year, we will social distance in the classroom. Masks will be optional if you've been fully vaccinated. Staff and students with verification by Dana.
That's what I said.
The bullet points.
Verbatim.
All right, so I'm looking for a second to Scott's motion. All right, moved and seconded. That similar to, or the same as last year in the classroom for driver's ed, social distance. Masks will be optional for fully vaccinated staff and students. Verification by Dana. Further discussion on this item. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? All right,
So now we gotta hit the,
yep, so now just other staff in the building for the summer.
We just make
any
it optional.
building, yeah.
Yeah, any staff working this summer, make it optional if they want to wear a mask. They've all had a chance to be back.
Okay,
I move that masks are optional for all staff members in our facilities this summer.
Second.
Moved and seconded that masks are optional for staff in the buildings for the summer.
Should I say, not included in summer food service program? Because that part's not optional.
Right.
All other staff besides summer food service
How
program.
about staff who are not working around kids that are in an unvaccinated category, have had the opportunity to vaccinate this time? Because we'll have kids like Crosswinds, we'll have kids up in there at Prairie Heights, but those staff won't have to interact, they'll be Crosswinds, right? But I think if you just said it about like custodians, district office, secretaries, if they're in their office working for something, there's no kids around, there's no need to have a mask on.
So all staff not interacting with students.
Yeah.
Masking is optional.
That's okay with me.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, everybody okay with the new statement of that motion, or do I need to be more formal and deny it and start over?
Can you just repeat it for me?
Sounds like the motion was for all staff not working with students this summer, masks are optional. Close.
Excellent.
Dan, that will do.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second.
Are you good with that?
All staff not working with students for the summer, masks are optional. Discussion on that item. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? So passed.
Party! Woo!
All right, are we done with masks for now?
One
Yes.
more question. Oh,
Okay.
since you said it like staff not working with kids, what about staff that are working with kids? Like special ed staff.
We'll have ESY this summer. And we'll have the credit recovery, but that will be high school kids. They've all had an opportunity to be vaccinated. ESY will be the only issue where we'll be dealing with elementary age kids that have not had the opportunity to be vaccinated yet. Yeah, good point. Probably need to discuss that because that starts sometime in July. Is that July? We run 2 sessions related to summer. I don't know.
June 7th is summer school
For ESY or for your credit recovery? Both.
for credit recovery. I think ESY, I think for our age group starts the week after that. It runs 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's like, yes, why? Has the staff members working with younger kids.
I think that's part of a bigger conversation we could talk about that at the next regular board.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. If we don't leave it as it is, we can talk about it the 14th with the work session, and then if we choose to change that or adjust it, we can do that at that point. Yeah. So right now, if a staff member, I mean, I'm open to conversation if we want to do something else, but right now, based on that previous motion, if staff members working directly with students, I guess other than driver's ed, they would still be masked.
Consistency, I think we need to keep. We have everything one way or the other. We're gonna do it, if it's good for one way.
Okay.
That was all hard to hear. I am so sorry. Where are we at?
When does summer school start again?
Summer school starts June the 7th.
So our meeting.
Well, I think the question is, do we want to stay consistent starting June 7th with the fact that driver's ed, because we just made a decision that it's a little hybrid, different, whatever, because students are going to be 6 spaced, they'll be social distance. I just about lost that word. I can't believe it. How many times I've used it. Students will be social distance, masks became optional during that time. But those are high school kids. So for staff people working with with students, directly with students, what do we want that to look like? I don't know that we're leaning one way or another at this point. I think that's just.
Well, to clarify your last statement there, we said drivers if they're in the car driving, without, they have to be vaccinated, not wear a mask, right?
Right, but I'm thinking I'm thinking classroom stuff inside the building.
I just want to make sure, because there's a difference.
But, and I also think there's a difference between if you're working with kids that have had the opportunity to vaccinate versus that haven't
Right.
as well. So that's.
That's why the credit recovery thing, all those kids have had an opportunity, that would be all 16 and up, I believe. Kelly, give me, is all your credit recovery kids enrolled, are they 16 and up?
No,
Okay, so no, it'd be the same concept.
there's 7, it's 7 to 12.
Okay. So yeah.
Are
it'd
you
be the
going
same
to have-
concept. Go ahead, Marie.
Are you going to have some students who will choose, or their parents will choose for them to not be vaccinated?
Yeah,
No?
yes, there already are, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there'll be kids who choose not to be vaccinated, absolutely, yeah. I think the difference, though, what we're talking about is the timeline for kids that choose to become vaccinated isn't until June 20, what do we say? June 23rd will be, after June 23rd, everybody 12 and up has had an option to be vaccinated. Right now, everybody 16 and up has had an option to be vaccinated. It's that 12 to 15-year-old range that those who chose to be vaccinated haven't had an opportunity yet to become fully vaccinated because of the 5-week window required from the first shot.
But
Is
then
some-
are we handling those who choose to not be vaccinated in a different category?
I don't think
If,
so.
no, if they're
No.
choosing not to be vaccinated, then they're required to wear a mask.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
in the car while they're driving. About driver's ed, is that what you're asking, Marie?
Well, just in general, if you've got unvaccinated students.
Yeah, so as of right now, until June 14th, we can discuss it again, but as of right now, any kids who are vaccinated don't have to wear a mask in driver's ed, is what the motion was, yes. Who are fully vaccinated, don't have to wear a mask.
Now we need to make a decision on what we're gonna do with like credit recovery.
And ESY.
Yes, why?
And the difference between those two is ESY is our co-op summer school, which goes all the way down to elementary.
So how many kids are we talking in the classroom there? Can they socially distance?
I have no idea. Angela runs that through the co-op. She's in charge of that.
Or credit recovery? I mean,
I think both the answer is yes.
so in that
If we
scenario,
have room to socially distance, we will do that. I can assure you, our summer school is set up the way that we socially distance.
And
I-
Kelsey was telling us about the elementary school too.
I don't think our groups are.
And the numbers
large
aren't
enough
very
that they
large.
could,
Yeah.
yeah.
Never very large. I think it can be done in all of those areas you're talking about. All of those
So the-
educational environments.
The question was, Mary, can everybody be social distance in ESY and summer school or credit recovery? And the answer to that was yes. Both the high school, junior high, high school credit recovery will have the ability to social distance, and ESY classrooms will be social distance as well.
Right, do they have, I guess the question I'm holding is, in just knowing that the direct instruction is going to occur in those situations, or an assumption is there would be a lot of direct instruction in small groups. Do the students have the option to social distance from the teacher that's maybe not vaccinated? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's why that's the whole point, I think, yeah, of the conversation. Do we need to have staff wear masks or not if they're not vaccinated?
Yes, that goes back to the question before. Do we know if the staff members that will be doing the recovery classes and then?
Not yet. I don't even know. We don't have a full staff
Okay,
yet for that.
well,
so yeah.
so if we knew that, we could make that point.
Yeah.
my question would go to Dana. Would you feel comfortable? I mean, I know we were doing mask breaks in the elementary school. If we're talking even a smaller number of kids in the classroom than the 20, whatever that are in there right now, would you feel comfortable with the recommendation that if they were seated, not actively moving around the classroom and able to social distance, that even the elementary school kids could be without a mask?
If they are socially distanced, yes.
So if we stated that while able to maintain social distancing, mask would be optional for both teachers and students, would that be an acceptable statement?
I think so. As long as they're, but I do think they should wear them if they are gonna be closer than 6 feet.
Right. So as long as we're saying, as long as social distancing.
That's what I was asking, Dana, and I appreciate you saying that because, you know, little kids don't have the option if their teacher sits down next to them to give them direct instruction of saying, well, you put your mask on, you know, so I think we have to be just really aware of this is a unique situation where there will be direct instruction, where a teacher will be near a student in a lot of cases.
And yeah, absolutely, and
Your light went out.
yeah, and a lot of small group instruction too. Okay, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole credit recovery system set up around that for the high school, and then elementary. I'm sure they'll do a lot of intervention style groups.
I guess I'm just saying, I trust the adults and I trust the kids. But my hunch or my hope, not my hunch, my hope is that the adults would protect the children that can't or won't say something in an unvaccinated situation.
All right, other thoughts on this?
I just want to make sure, I'm not sure where we went with that. So are we talking like if you're just no mask at all, as long as you're social distance? Are we talking like when they do the small group instruction, it'll be required to wear a mask? Are we saying if they're not vaccinated, they have to? If they are vaccinated, as a staff, they don't have to wear a mask in a small group? There's a lot of, we need to be very clear on that. We want to make sure Angela has that guidance.
What I was hearing with that, we landed on masks are required if you're not social distance.
It's like if they.
Or masks are optional if you are social distance.
Okay, so when they get in the small group, they need to put their mask on. Right, the teacher walks up and leans over a kid's shoulder to help them. They need to put
What
their
if
mask
that's a fully vaccinated staff?
on. But yeah, and we'll get that question.
Right.
Definitely. If they want to show proof they're vaccinated, are we okay saying you can take off your mask if they choose to show proof? Leave it optional on the employee. They want to walk in and say, hey, yeah, here I'm vaccinated. They take your mask off. We won't make it a requirement for like a condition of employment type situation, but if they choose to show it, they can take it off.
I think that's a good caveat, and that also then allows that to still be on the staff member, whether or not they make that decision. If they choose not to be vaccinated, you know, then, yeah.
Sense.
All right, somebody want to
I'll try it.
wipe that off?
Good luck.
I move that with regards to credit recovery and summer school, that as long as students and staff are able to socially distance, masks are optional. And if a staff member provides proof of vaccination, they can be unmasked.
And real quick, we want to add to that if it's, because like the credit recovery will have older kids who have the option to be, there could be 16 and up. And
Staff or student.
Staff or
staff for
students.
students who shows. proof,
Yes,
Yeah, they
staff
can
or
not wear a
students.
mask.
Yes, unmasked.
Second that.
All right, moved and seconded that masks will be optional in classrooms for the summer if social distanced. Also for staff and students with proof of fully vaccination.
Yes.
Is that close?
To stay unmasked when not social distance.
Right. Perfect. That mask would be optional. All right, further discussion on that item. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? All right, does that cover all of those what ifs?
So
For today?
the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
No.
Mr. McDevitt, Ms. Brimmer, does that help you? Does that get everybody through the 14th at least?
All right, then moving on to the next item, it is the academic calendar.
Yep. So any questions on that? I sent that out. It's a blessing in disguise. It's worked out. This will be good. It'll be a great way to kick off next school year after this year. It'd be great. So.
You just real quick, tell us again what that was.
Sure. So our initial calendar you approved started the first day was back was all staff was August 12th. 2 years ago, 2 school years ago, we entered into the contract to bring in a national speaker, Teach Like a Rock Star, to do a multi-district kickoff, motivational type kickoff. That obviously fell through COVID. So it's pretty expensive. It was over $10,000 to bring them in, but part of our Greenbush contract paid for a portion of that, and then it was a small contribution by each of the other 3 districts participating. So it's us, North Line, and South Line County, and we're going to meet the Civic Auditorium and do it there with all staff, all teach licensed staff. So now that they've rescheduled that, as part of the contract, well, we don't get a refund, we just get to move the date. So we received notification last week that the new date would be August 13th. So that put us into a pretty good panic really quick. We have all our PD planned out and it's pretty tight. This PD schedule this year is really tight. But in looking at the calendar, I was able to, if we just moved the first day back to the 11th and added one more PD day, it works out perfectly. And it actually works out better for our resilience trainers too that are coming in to become on the 11th instead of the 12th initially like they were going to. So it worked out well, but in order to counterbalance that, then since we're adding a day contractually for teachers, we need to take off a day somewhere. So this year, the way the calendar ended up anyhow for the next coming school year, Christmas break is shorter than normal just because the way it fell on the calendar. So this adds another day. We would make, I think it's the 22nd now, the last day of that
21st.
21st, and the 22nd becomes the first day of Christmas break, or winter break for kids. So good. They're minor changes, but we need to make sure teachers can plan for that and parents can plan for that too.
Right. Okay. Thoughts or questions on the calendar change? Anyone?
I move we approve the change to the 2021-2022 academic calendar.
All right, moved and seconded that we approve the presented changes to the 2021-2022 academic calendar. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? All right, so passed. And with that, we will be adjourned until the next meeting on June 14th.
I have something.
Okay.
Mr. Doty threw an awesome party last night for all the district employees. And he did a lot of work and he did a lot of it by himself. And Tina Ray was running ragged and I was watching. And it was just a great time. It was really fun. And Mr. Doty cried, of course, you know how he does. Made everybody else cry, but it was awesome. It was nice to have everyone together and just really grateful for that time. So thank you for doing that for everyone.
Thank all of you. Thanks all our staff. We made it. We did it. We got through a year and it was a challenging year, but everyone did a fantastic job. And I think we set a lot of standards throughout the state and our district. A lot of people looked at our district for how things turned out. And our state assessment results were phenomenal. I mean, couldn't ask for anything better than that based on the year we had. It's phenomenal. Kudos to everyone.
I want to piggyback off either. That was an opportunity for staff to be able to have their family present and to just hang out and stuff. It was amazing opportunity for them. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks goes to all of you. and our staff.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Oh, thank you.